Well, I have a few things I want to talk about.
Before you do, should you just go ahead and tell me what you got me for my birthday, bro?
No, but I do get you something awesome.
Well, I don't know.
No, it is pretty cool. I think you're going to like it.
Dude, by the way, my kids got me...
Coming from Tijuana.
I can't even imagine what that could be.
It even says Tijuana's finest on the bottom. We'll talk about it later. Probably inappropriate.
Oh, my God. Hey, guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast, That Would Be Rad. A podcast that majors in 80s and 90s nostalgia, comic culture, all things paranormal. I said that weird. And minors in retro video games, tabletop RPGs, pre-internet mysteries, and raising our kids to be half as cool as we were back in the 80s. We are your hosts, Woody Brown.
And Tyler Bentz. How's it going, dude?
It's going well, man. If I can figure out how to get these words to come out of my mouth without them just kind of like fumbling all over each other.
I think.
Know what I mean?
I thought you sounded strong.
My kids got me they went to Wizards and just randomly picked out like a couple of back issues. And they actually did really good, man. They did.
You got Demolition Man comic adaptation.
No, Wolverine number 18 from December.
You gotta give me the cover. I don't know what that means.
Well, it's like
first of all, before you get into that, this was one of the things I wanted to start off before you interrupted me. I was going to say, everybody, we're now a week past, but yesterday was Woody's birthday, so round of applause.
Well, thank you.
Secondly, back to your story, Wolverine number.
Well, I mean, since we're talking about birthdays, we also had some listeners that had birthdays.
Mm-hmm.
One, our friend Christian Castillo. Our friend Christian Costanza. Mm-hmm. His birthday apparently is the day before mine, so that's pretty awesome. Happy birthday there.
Oh, real quick, fun fact. Christian's uncle is actually the guy who created the character George Costanza, so that's where the name even comes from.
Just shut up, man.
I'm being dead serious. Ask him.
No, you're not.
Call him.
But we had a listener reach out, and, dude, I love this kind of stuff. She actually was turned on to our show by her fiance. So first off, this guy is already kind of just setting himself up for success because a family that is rad together stays together, right?
I mean, not always, but...
Always, bro. Okay?
Most times.
But anyway, so we wanted to wish our listener, Matt Golden, a happy birthday. His birthday's this month.
Nice.
And really to all our listeners that we don't know who have birthdays in September, hey, man, welcome to the club. Yeah, I turned a year older this year. And, boy, you get older and it's a little bit more, aches and pains.
Well, especially for you because you turned the big 50, so it's a milestone.
I am not 50.
Milestone
birthday. The big 4-1.
4-5, yep.
Shut up.
I want to go back to you talking about the Wolverine.
Yeah, so I think with this issue, again, it's Wolverine number 18. The cover is done by...
Mark Silvestri.
No. John Byrne. And it's okay. I mean, it's pretty cool, actually. It's a really cool cover. It's got like this guy named Roughhouse, and he's just like slamming Wolverine in the face with the giant punch. It's also got a character in there that I hadn't seen. They call him Nuke, and he's basically this like super soldier with an American flag tattooed on his face.
Oh, yeah, I've seen him.
It was written by Archie Goodwin.
Yep.
Man, one of the things I love about getting into these old books, dude, is like kind of, going back and looking up like, oh, Archie Goodwin. Okay, I know I've heard that name, but why?
Oh, yeah.
And so I look it up, and it's like, holy smokes,
he's a big
this
deal.
guy. I mean, he was like I think he was the original Iron Man writer back in 1968, and co-created Luke Cage with John Romita Sr.
Yeah, he's an old school guy.
Also co-created Spider-Woman, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so he's kind of an old school dude. And so anyways, I got that one, and it's pretty cool. But then also they picked out the Punisher War Journal number 2, which I've got that, dude, I've now kind of reignited my desire to collect this whole run because I forgot that. So this one's done by
Jim Lee territory yet?
Oh yeah, dude.
Oh,
so
okay,
it's Carl Potts and Jim Lee. They actually did the first 25 issues of this first volume.
Really?
It's only 80 issues, but they did the first 25.
Oh man.
And
I knew he did the covers and like so I thought he would kind of bounce around. I didn't realize that he did like consecutive. Man.
Yeah, and I mean I've got other issues, especially like the ones where it's like Wolverine versus Punisher and that kind of stuff. And that's really when you really start to see like this one that they got, not the first one, but this issue that they got me. You know, yes, it looks like Jim Lee, but it's like
he's not quite there yet.
Yeah, like whenever I saw it, I actually had to I was like, oh, okay. I had to look for like who did the cover. I mean, it's if you know it's Jim Lee, it kind of makes sense. But like in the later issues of this run, man, especially when Wolverine shows up, it's like extremely obvious, dude.
Yeah. What was the issue that we found at Second and Charles a while back that I wish that I would have got, but you took it. It was like heavy use of like screen tones. You know what I'm talking about? It was almost this weird sort of like, maybe it was like during like flashback sequences, real sort of monochromatic, like blues and stuff. But you could see like, you know, the real deal screen tones. For all you non-comic fans out there, screen tones are typically from a Japanese company called Deleter, and they are like these sheets, adhesive sheets. So imagine like big stickers with like different levels of density of like little tiny dots, and you cut out those shapes and then you paste them on top of your art, and it adds like sort of values or light and shadow.
Dude, I remember now.
You know what I'm talking about?
I'm still it's a great excuse to kind of go back through all of my Punisher runs, but I'm pretty sure it's John Romita Jr.
Was it? I thought it was
and
Jim Lee.
His run with Punisher Warzone. I'm almost positive.
I think that's like I thought that was like 290s. I'm almost positive it was Jim Lee though.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look back through. It might be whenever Wolverine jumps in.
I did pick up, speaking of John Romita Jr., I've kind of gotten on to him later in life. I used to hate him, and I realize now.
I love him.
Well, I love him too. I realize now that I hated him because he was really prime in that area of like just the shittiest like 90s coloring that just ruined his art. This is Dark Knight Returns, The Last Crusade. And man, I thought it was going to be really cool. It was like, you know, in plastic wrap. And then you open it up and you can tell the artwork is great. It's great, John Romita Jr., but it's just his pencils and then a guy named Peter Steigerwald doing the inks and colors, and it fucking ruined it.
Yeah, man, that's the thing about Romita Jr., dude. To me, he's made... It's like it makes or breaks it.
Yeah, big
depending
time.
on who's the colorist. You know.
Well, this guy inked it too, so it's this real sort of weird, like washy, like it almost looks like pastels or something. Like I hate it. I hate it. But
and, you know, like I really like for him specifically. I really like a certain era. You know, best. I mean, like his the Punisher Warzone stuff and some of his Daredevil stuff.
Oh yeah,
I really, really, really like. But like, there's certain things like in the late '90s, early 2000s, and even now that I don't like it as much.
Yeah,
there's some good Spider-Man stuff though.
Oh yeah, yeah. He did the that one book that I was looking for forever, and I never can get the name right. It's like Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Punisher.
We always talk about it. Yeah,
it's like I don't think it's Hearts of Darkness, but something like that. But I think the art in that is like the best that he's ever looked. And then it also has like whoever the colorist is doing like it almost looks like just sort of watercolor almost. It kind of looks a little like Superman for All Seasons. It's sort of this watercolory kind of. It just looks like real coloring instead of that 90s like over the top. Everything has gradients and.
See, I don't mind that so much. What I do mind is like the airbrush look.
Oh no, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about
the worst.
Yeah, we're talking about the same.
We're talking about the same thing, calling it two different things.
Yeah.
What else is new?
Like everything looks like metallic or what?
Metallica.
No, metallic.
I like that old band Metallica.
You're so stupid.
All right, man. Let's dive in. Let's dive in.
Oh man, let me start off the bat by saying thank you to our buddy, Dustin Downey. He had bought a Dark Knight 86 print for me a while back, and I made him wait what seems like months at this point, and before I got it out the door, so included a little something extra. And then we just happened to be talking about something, and I mentioned, because he's a huge, toy collector. He's like into all that cool stuff. He knows a lot. I'd love to have him on eventually to talk about toys and stuff, because I feel like for both of us, like, beyond like 80s nostalgia and that stuff, like at least for me, I have, and you, I know this, we have like a real blind spot for a lot of the modern toys, and and our buddy John Packers, he knows about all that stuff too. But our buddy Dustin, him and I were talking, and there's this Adam West character, 66 Batman, and it's made by a company called NECA. And I was like, man, have you ever been able to find this? Because you can only find it I've only seen it on eBay, and it's all from China, which is like, not to put down anybody in China, but, a lot of times, they're fakes. And so I've been looking elsewhere, and I'm like, hey, man, do you know where I could find this? I've been looking for it for a couple years now. And the reason I love it is because, it is a 66 Batman, like Adam West. It's just super cool because like all the seams and like stitches, it's basically how I draw characters, like costuming. It's like I include all of like the creases and wrinkles in their costuming. I almost give everything almost like a homemade type vibe. You see all the stitches and seams and, all that kind of stuff. And so I've been wanting this figure, and he was like, oh, I got one in my garage. It's going out in the mail to you tomorrow. And
so cool.
Blew my mind. I'm so thankful. That was such an awesome thing you did, Dustin. I really appreciate it. And for all you out there who are into toys, go check him out. His Instagram is Fwoosh, FWOOSH _. That's the bottom line, right? Disthunder, DISTHUNDER. And it's Dustin Downey. Super cool. Awesome. It is the wonkiest, silliest looking, ill-postured Batman you've ever seen, and it's perfect. It's my favorite figure I've ever owned. I'll send you a picture. It's awesome. Secondly, our good buddy and longtime member of the That Would Be Rad family, Clay, sent us some things in the mail, and they kind of blew our mind.
Yeah, man. Unbelievable.
He included a letter. It says, Woody and Tyler, thanks for all the great content over the last year. Feel free to make copies and distribute these as you see fit, or maybe just send your raddest fans these items. Listening to you both reminds me of all the conversations I had and currently have with all of my friends here in the Midwest. Take it easy and be rad, Clay.
That's awesome.
And they're these, I don't know how to describe them. They're right on par with the stuff that we absolutely love, that sort of pre-internet era. It brings, the Mayday mystery to mind, or the Toynbee tile stuff, like kind of the era of you going to like Kinko's and like pasting stuff together and like
hand making. We talked about this when we got them. It reminds us of like the sort of like handmade posters and stuff that we would like make to promote our bands back in high school.
Or like punk zines and stuff.
Yeah. So I found he calls them billfold zines.
That's it. Billfold zines. Yeah.
And it's like one, you can fit in your back pocket. I mean, it's like exactly like the kind of stuff that like we would be into.
Oh yeah.
Even back in the day, I mean, it's so cool. Like, it's just really neat.
Yeah.
Really, really cool stuff, man.
Yeah, we love it. And we'll probably do that. We'll probably send a few out.
Yeah, maybe do like a giveaway or something.
Yeah, or if you guys step up to the plate and send us some stories, or for Halloween season. That was amazing. Super cool. Super weird. There's a lot of like little weird, like cryptic kind of like tie-ins to episodes and all this stuff. It's amazing. I love it. I will cherish them forever.
Super, super rad, man. Thank you so much.
Thirdly, I want to give thanks to the boys over at Bigfoot Collectors Club. They reposted our episode 1 that we had with Bryce, which, fourthly, thank you, Bryce Johnson, for taking the time and being on our season 2 premiere. It was awesome.
Incredible, man.
Yeah, really, really cool. And that's it. Right. I think that's it for housekeeping now.
Boy, howdy. So what are we talking about today, man?
Well, I know that you're expecting me to say one thing, but So I got a confession. We had this topic that we were getting ready to talk about, and I told Woody, I'm sure he's studied and researched his ass off, but now that we're on, I totally want to pivot. I happen to run across this.
Cool.
Cool. I mean, we'll eventually do it. I mean, we'll.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Perfect, man. I'm so glad I spent on that time.
It's a great topic, but I ran across this character, this account, and I had totally forgot about it, but it reignited this sort of feeling of, and you'll see once we get into it, but I don't know, I just have the feeling that we should do it now. So,
well, I'm game, dude. It sounds awesome.
and I'm taking the heavy lifting. So I'm reading about the account. So, we'll reconvene on the other topic maybe next week.
That sounds good.
Anyway, so here goes.
Less ums.
Okay.
Whoa, here we go.
Damn it.
Started. Right after that, started with one.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
America's future can be determined by our dreams and our visions.
It was very intense, bright light.
For over 200 years, there have been reports of giant man-like creatures.
From another dimension, another world, I don't know.
The most intriguing mystery on the North American continent.
Hey, this is Bryce Johnson from the Bigfoot Collectors Club, and you're listening to Tyler and Woody on That Would Be Rad, because that is rad.
On the soft autumn evening of October 17th, 1973, Jeff Greenhaw, then a 26-year-old chief of police of Falkville, Alabama, was just settling in with his wife for a well-deserved night of rest when he received an emergency call just after 10 p.m. Little could have been imagined at the time that his phone call would change his life forever. The call was from a nearly hysterical and to this day anonymous woman who claimed that an unidentified flying object had landed just outside of town in a field that was owned by Bobby Summerford. Thus began arguably the second most bizarre case of an alien encounter to come out of the American South in that very same month. The first one, of course, was being the infamous case of the freakish and ostensibly intergalactic kidnappers known as the Pascagoula alien abductors, which we'll go into later. Although he was off duty, Greenhaw, abiding by his sworn duty to protect and serve, jumped up, snagged his keys, cuffs, revolver, and almost as an afterthought, his trusty Polaroid camera, on the off chance that there might be something worth taking a shot of. He then hopped into his truck, radioed the call, and flew to the location of the alleged flying saucer landing. When Greenhaw arrived on the scene, he got out of his truck and patrolled the area, but claimed to find nothing out of the ordinary. The chief then returned to his vehicle and decided to take drive around the field before returning home. Greenhaw cruised around the perimeter of Summerford's property, scanning the darkness of anything unusual, but saw nothing of note in the murky blackness. He then turned down a narrow gravel path for one final pass. That was when he came face to face with the unthinkable. After traveling down the trail for about 100 yards, Greenhaw saw an entity that he described as a humanoid figure, standing next to the road about 75 feet away. The chief got out of his truck and carefully approached the figure, thinking that it may be someone in need of assistance. Greenhaw shouted to the strange companion, but it did not respond. As he got within 15 feet of the being that was now brilliantly illuminated in his truck's high beams, the chief realized that something was very wrong. The entity appeared to be wearing some kind of silvery metallic suit that resembled thick aluminum foil. Some reports also indicate that the metal man's stature was somewhat small and childlike or even simian, not unlike a monkey in a spacesuit. Greenhaw described what he saw. It looked like his head and neck were kind of made together. He was real bright, something like rubbing mercury on nickel, but just as smooth as glass. Different angles gave him different lighting. When I saw him standing in the middle of the road, I immediately stopped the car and asked if he was a foreigner, but no sound came out of his mouth. Classic.
Yeah, that's just about as Alabama as it gets.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, you a foreigner?
You a foreigner? Greenhaw also noted that the thing had an antenna sticking out from the top of its head, and that its movements were jerky and mechanical. It's worth noting that the description of this apparently necklace, wrinkled skin, antenna-bearing robotic entity is not unlike Charles Hickson's observation of the aforementioned Pascagoula alien abductors, who, according to an eyewitness testimony, snatched Hickson and his young friend Calvin Parker from a quiet riverside in Mississippi just days before this Falkville event. Is it possible that Greenhaw encountered the same extraterrestrial entities that allegedly abducted the two Mississippi dock workers on the evening of Thursday, October 11th, 1973? It would be curious to know whether or not Parker or Hickson had ever seen the Falkville photos and what their opinions of them were if they indeed had. It didn't take long for the shocked Greenhaw realizing that he was dealing with something completely beyond his experience, and, pushing his panic aside with great effort aided by years of police training, he had the presence of mind to pick up his instant camera and shoot 4 photographs of the entity in question. The first Polaroid shows nothing but inky darkness and a flash of silver, but the next 3 images hit the jackpot. In the photos, one can clearly see a humanoid figure wearing a wrinkly metallic suit or outer casing, which reflected the flash from the Polaroid's bulb. Perhaps believing that it was being attacked by a human with some kind of light beam, the creature instantaneously turned and began sprinting across the field at speeds far in excess of those capable by human beings. Greenhaw noted that it seemed to be heading in a general direction of Lacon, which is about 3 miles away from Falkville. The chief reacted swiftly, darted back to his truck, and took off in hot pursuit of the Metal Man. Greenhaw would state that he managed to accelerate his truck only to about 35 miles an hour due to the rough terrain of the field, but that he was still completely outrun by his unusual entity, which, not unlike Finland's Canula humanoid, West Virginia's Vegetable Man, or even London's notorious Spring-Heeled Jack, seemed to be able to defy the laws of gravity with its speed and spectacular logic-defying leaps. According to Greenhaw, he ran in a bizarre way, jerky, seemed to have springs in his feet for propulsion or something, could cover about 3 meters in every way. He was running faster than any human I've ever saw. During the frantic off-road pursuit, Greenhaw claims he lost control of the truck and slid into a ditch. He watched as the creature slipped into the darkness, never to be seen again, leaving Greenhaw with only his haunting memories and a series of controversial Polaroid photos. Unlike Hickson and Parker, who seemed for better or worse to be destined for fame following their alien encounter in Pascagoula, Greenhaw's experience was instantly met with skepticism, derision, and at times outright ridicule. Within months of revealing his bizarre encounter, the chief of police was terminated by the town council. His marriage fell apart, and just when it must have seemed as if matters couldn't get any worse, his home was burned to the ground. All of the above factors, along with the usual spate of UFO conspiracy theories, have thrown kerosene on the already brightly burning flames of controversy surrounding the event, and more to the point, give a clear indication as to why most contactees and eyewitnesses remain silent regarding their unusual experiences. Some ufologists believe that the Metal Man was a robotic scout for what may have been an extraterrestrial landing craft, while skeptics maintain that it was all a hoax perpetrated by Greenhaw and an unknown accomplice, perhaps a child due to the apparent height of the entity, who was clad in a tinfoil costume or perhaps more ambitiously, an asbestos fire suit, which are coated in a layer of reflective aluminum, was used to create the unusual look of the creature. The images that Greenhaw snapped were collected and sent for analysis by Walt Andrus, a director of MUFON, which, as we know, is the Mutual UFO Network. The conclusion drawn by the analyst was that the encounter was most likely a fabrication, probably inspired by all of the furor surrounding the recent Pascagoula case. A lot of papers ruffling over there.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to. When you hit me with something like this, it's a surprise. I'm trying to find some connections. That time period seems familiar to me. Mm-hmm. Keep going. Ignore the papers.
Interestingly, the negatives of the Greenhaw pictures that were studied by MUFON seem to show images of a flying saucer among them, although Greenhaw never claimed to even have photographed the object initially reported. Perhaps the pictures on the contact sheet represent another MUFON case unrelated to the Falkville accident. Or, as so often seems to be the case in both authentically unexplained events or outright hoaxes, maybe there's more to this story that has been previously told. While it is virtually impossible to ascertain whether or not this is a real close encounter or a fraud, it seems clear that Chief Greenhaw garnered no financial gain or positive notoriety. Even though the encounter has been mentioned in numerous books detailing alleged alien encounters, due to his experience and while he has managed to rebuild some semblance of a normal life, all reports indicate that he continues to regret his encounter with this unknown. To this day, however, Greenhaw and his supporters insist that the images in question represent a genuine, non-human entity and that whatever it was that Chief of Police encountered on the autumn evening back in 1973 was not of this world.
Man. Dude,
Pretty
what
cool.
the crap? Yeah, man. Well,
Yeah.
in a way, I'm glad that you surprised me with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In another way, I'm pissed. Let me explain. Dude, I mean, like, it only makes me want to dive into this more, and I kind of feel like I'm just hit with this, you know, incredibly intriguing story blind. But, you know, because I don't admittedly know much about the Pascagoula stuff.
I vaguely do. Once we get into it, it'll perk up my memory, I'm sure. But I didn't realize that they were sort of tied together.
Yeah, potentially. And it makes me like, because I love connections between events in terms of like dates and like similarities with other things that we talked about in season one and this. What do you want me to do? You want me to just go out of the gate what this reminds me of, or just my thoughts on it all?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Okay. Out of the gate,
Let's get into it.
obviously, this reminds me of one of our favorites, Sam the Sandown Ghost.
Here we
Clown.
go. Yes.
And I can't remember the exact date, though, so that's where I look like a damn idiot.
Oh, now I think it was 72.
It's close. So
It isn't. It's in the 70s. I mean, pretty far away from each other, but
that's what I was trying to flip through here. Hold on, let me see. But like,
yeah, I mean, that was the Isle of Wight over in England. But
well, but dude, if we're talking about interdimensional or
I'm with you.
interplanetary, you know, that's a hop, skip, and a jump.
yeah, the jerky movements, the metallic nature, the almost inhuman ways that it would sort of. Almost like he said, it almost like it had springs built in its feet or something, how it could just like jump. But it was pretty small though too, which is
weird. So I just looked up the picture of this sucker, and okay. Before I get there, also some things that like stood out to me that I'm, like my mind while you're reading this went like a million different places. First, it sounded like he described it being small, and then it kind of like maybe like reminded him of like a monkey or something. Then I'm like, oh man, Planet of the Apes. Sending, early in our own exploration of space history here in the United States with NASA, for example, we would send chimps up into space. Well, what if they, just like in the, sort of like remake of Planet of the Apes with Mark Wahlberg, what if they sent the chimpanzee into space? It goes into like a black hole or something, which spits it back out at a different time. Boom. All of a sudden, this thing's walking around in, Farquhar, Alabama. And
Falkville.
Okay, Falkville. And, there's that thing that popped in my mind whenever you were talking about it. Then, it's, of course, the obvious sort of parallels between this and Sam the Sandown Ghost Clown, and
antenna on its head.
Yeah,
weird, no neck.
Man, it's very strange. And then, admittedly, I also looked up, Falkville alien. Boom, to see what these pictures that this guy took. Which again, I was like, what? Whenever you said that, and man, it's weird because it doesn't look like I wish there was some context in terms of its size,
me too.
Because like it looks like it's like big. Like as I'm looking at it, it looks like it's like some, you know, large thing. So,
well, and also like, you know, a lot of the, you know, the sort of skeptics and debunkers, like I understand, and you know, we'll post this in the show notes and everything, but like I get it if they're saying like, oh, well, it just looks like tinfoil or something, but like there's something about it that it's like, yes, to us it could look like tinfoil, like it does look sort of like wrinkled metal, but then it not. If it's almost like if you look at it like with that in mind, it's like, oh yeah, that makes total sense of looking like tinfoil or some kind of, you know, foil based like metallic suit. But then at the same time, if you look at it, because he says it was as smooth as glass, but every direction you would kind of look at it or like turn, all the colors would kind of change. So if you look at it in that way, it almost looks like maybe those aren't the wrinkles in the tinfoil. Maybe that's just sort of this multifaceted way that the light is kind of bouncing off.
right. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, I mean, we're also talking about early technology in terms of photography. We're also talking about, you know, the type of camera that a, you know, rural police officer would have.
There it is.
There it is. And
First one of season 2. Take a drink.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. Looking at the picture, well, okay, let's. I'm going to approach this in a couple different ways. Number one, even if it is a hoax, and he's not in on it, okay, seeing something like this in the middle of the road in the early 70s would be enough to put me in a mental health facility. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even running into this, you know, like driving down some random road up where we live right now today, and all of a sudden I see some shiny metal suit person, I'm freaked out, bro. You know?
Oh, yeah.
I'm definitely taking a picture of it, though.
Oh, yeah.
But the light, I think, would refract off of anything that has that sort of ability to kind of be as sort of malleable and like bendable, you know, any kind of, you know, do you know those emergency blankets? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, and that's what I meant by like sort of foil material.
Yeah, like
yeah.
If you took a picture of something, man, I think we're gonna have to get one, and we're gonna have to take a picture inside of one. But like,
Okay. Yep.
you know, just to illustrate what it looks like with the flash on, and take a picture of it in the middle of the night just to see what that looks like. Because to me, I guess the people that are debunking it say, well, you know, it's just tinfoil. Okay, cool. So what? It doesn't look like it's just like somebody put a, you know, tinfoil on top of somebody. It looks like a suit.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not there is a quote unquote spaceman inside of it, I don't know. But I mean, the pictures are pretty dang fascinating.
Well, and I'm actually, I'll hold off before we give like what we think this is. But yes, I totally agree, and I do think that, I don't know. I mean, it really could go both ways. But I will say this: I think. I mean, and it really is a pretty sad story. I mean, think about it. The dude worked his whole life to become the chief of police in his town, small town, rural town, which, yet again, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but, you know, if you don't live in a small rural town in the South, you know, just the idea of, you know, I grew up with a lot of like, my whole extended family, they're all blue collar. They're all farmers and just very sort of, they own cattle. It's very blue collar, you know, very sort of salt of the earth. You know, we talk about the weather. We talk about like tools and like hunting and yada, yada, yada. So I can kind of look at this from kind of an interesting sort of perspective in the sense of like, you know, I grew up and my Aunt Linda was big into like Stephen King, and I credit her to kind of being she was kind of my light in the darkness for all this stuff that I was into. You know, I had nobody else in my family that I could kind of reach out to and be like, hey, do you believe in ghosts? Do you do this?
Right.
Like, without them being like, Tyler, that's ridiculous. Whatever. But that's kind of the overall sort of vibe for your average blue collar, person in a small town. So I will say, like, I cannot imagine a guy that's chief of police. He spent his entire life, his entire career building up to be the head of the police department, which is looked at very highly. I don't care if there was a furor or this massive excitement about this, like, alien encounter that happened a week before or whatever. I just cannot imagine the chief of police setting all of this up. I mean, there's not, motivationally, there's nothing that he would gain other than just intense ridicule.
Right. Yeah.
And he did. He lost his marriage. He was immediately fired. His house was burned down, which I tried to look and I can't really figure out, was it arson? I don't really know as far as that goes, but
or just that metal man shooting laser beams.
he came back.
But I mean, to your point, dude, like about small towns and the really, especially, back then, but certainly still to this day, like in a small town, like all you have truly is your reputation.
Yep, that's right.
Because like if you're known as a crazy person or if you're known as like a good person or whatever, that's the only way that you get anywhere sort of like in that small town. And, everybody knows everybody and everybody knows everything about everybody.
Right.
And so just like you said, and I think, we talked about this with Bryce last week's episode.
Wait, who's Bryce? Oh, yeah, Bryce Johnson from Expedition Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Travel Channel's Expedition Bigfoot.
Right, and Bigfoot Collectors Club. We talked about it in the sense that, like, when these people kind of put it all on the line, and this happens, I think, throughout a lot of different sort of eyewitness testimonies, and potentially part of it's the answer to, well, why don't we hear more about this kind of stuff?
Right.
Well, look what happens historically,
exactly,
when people come forward and do this. I mean, truly, their life gets upended, and for the most part, I would say rarely in a good way.
Very, very rarely.
And I mean, truly, like if I'm just thinking about it, and you would, have a better sort of foundational knowledge about this.
I can't think of any.
I can't think of one.
No, me neither.
So it's like, other than, I mean, now if we see something, obviously we're going to, tell our listeners about it.
Oh, yeah.
But not for anything other than, I mean, it's just, yes, there's no reason that I can think of other than this dude just wanting to shake it up and get crazy.
Right.
Because, I mean, like you said, his marriage dissolved. All of these things started, how he lost his job, his livelihood, all of that stuff just crumbled beneath his feet.
Well, and also I think it's something that we should note, exactly like what you're saying, Woody. It's like your reputation is, I mean, that's kind of all you have. If you you lead this good life, you're good to people, you're kind, especially being like a police officer. You're there to protect and serve. Not even counting the fact of him being the chief of police. So with being a police officer, especially the chief of police, you're kind of, your superpower is almost the ability to observe and to sort of pick up on certain things. And so if that's kind of compromised, if suddenly they're like, oh well, he's lying about this, he didn't see this, he made it up, once that's compromised, I mean, and it's exactly, I'm sure, what happened. I mean, that's why he was let go from the police department.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, how easily would it be for, let's say someone is guilty of a crime, and, well, now we're going to call in our expert witness testimony, and then that person just says, can we approach the bench?
Right.
And it's like,
Yeah.
this guy said that he saw a spaceman in a metal suit. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, you're the single voice of authority for that entire small town.
Perfect
And I
way
think
to put it.
it could be potentially, I think maybe difficult for folks who either live in another country or even within here in the United States. If these small towns in the South, I think, are even small. Like, I wish to illustrate the fact that, like, like, I don't even know.
Well, let me try to say it. It's like, imagine like a village, right? So where Woody said, everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows each other's business. So on the good side of that is a really beautiful thing. And people from the South are known for being kind and polite. And in these small towns, say you're in this tiny little town. Say Jerry over here, he built a house over in this other area, so he needs to move. It's not out of the ordinary for the whole town to kind of rally, especially in the 70s, to rally around Jerry and say, hey man, let's go help you move. And people would bring pies to say, welcome to this part of the town, yada, yada, yada. So on the positive side, it's a wonderful thing. But on the negative side, it is like everybody, by association is going to be in each other's business.
Yeah.
And so if it is something that is, number one, as outlandish as seeing a metal man, and number two, your evidential, your proof looking like it could sort of go both ways, he was really kind of setting himself up. But at the same time, like, I get it. And I would have been probably the same way, because and again, if this is all true, you would be ecstatic to be like, I captured something. Even if it was somebody faking and maybe he wasn't in on the joke, and somebody else was out there, like, but this is the thing too, that I think that a lot of times it's just, I think the skeptics I'm going to stop saying skeptics. I'm just going to start saying debunkers.
Yeah.
I think the debunkers easily just throw it out there of like, oh, well, either he was in on it, or number two, somebody planned this anonymous phone call where this woman was like freaking out and crying and going nuts because she saw a UFO land like near somebody's property. Maybe he wasn't in on it, but he shows up, and it's like, it's just weird to me that the location of the area that he said that he saw it, if somebody was going to set this up as a hoax, why would he have to, would they not just be in the middle of the road to where they knew that he would show up at? Because it first says that he showed up, he drove around this area until he saw nothing. And then as he was leaving, he thought, okay, well, let me go down this other like little side path. So it just doesn't, it's, Occam's razor. It's like, It just doesn't make sense to me that if you're going to do a hoax, you're going to be out there in the open. It's kind of like people when they say, oh, well, this guy saw a Bigfoot crossing the road at 4:00 in the morning. Mm-hmm. What benefit is that from somebody to dress up in a monkey suit
for the random chance?
Yeah. And this is a small town too, so it's like much less people than nowadays, So,
I mean, dude, the more I kind of like think about it, the sadder I get for this guy. Because think about it this way too, Tyler and listener. What is a police? We'll say police officer. Any police officers' primary objective whenever they go to investigate anything? Mm-hmm. Well, they're gonna ask the eyewitnesses questions, right, about what happened, and if possible, take pictures, right? So, in other words, if this would have been a helicopter crash,
right?
I mean, that more than likely, maybe he wouldn't. But I mean, they're going to be taking pictures. It's the same thing. I mean, guys, go back, watch some Columbo episodes. Why don't you? Okay, people are coming to investigate.
Oh
a murder.
My gosh, dude!
They're taking. Hold on. 5 seconds. Synchronicity, man. 4, 5.
Peter.
That's it.
Peter Falkville.
Oh man! I mean, I think it's probably no. It's spelled probably Falk, man.
Synchronicity.
Whoa.
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
The bottom line is, they're going to take pictures. And so, like, the more I think about it, it's like this poor guy, all he was doing, dude, was going out there to do his job. He took pictures of what he saw.
Observe.
He brings that back to the precinct, and this is what he gets for it, you know?
Yeah.
It's so sad, man.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird too that the role of film, apparently he had like a UFO was in that same role of film. So I don't totally know what that's about, but I mean, it's, kind of interesting.
Now, can you find those images?
I haven't been able to find them now.
Okay.
So maybe it was like a tiny dot or something kind of off in the distance, which, who knows? But I think it's really interesting, and I remembered hearing about it years and years ago. It kind of popped up again, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we got to do this!" So
this is this known as anything specifically?
I think it's just called which the name itself is what got me so excited. It's just called the Falkville Metal Man.
Nice.
What do you think, man?
Dude, I love that topic, man. I mean, God almighty, it's tough, dude. You look at the pictures.
I
like,
know,
for example, I showed this picture to Ann, and she's gonna be like, "Thick as hell."
Yeah, 100%. But it does suck because number one, it's like a shitty kind of quality. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's like
tough.
it definitely does look like wrinkled tinfoil.
But it also looks like a dude with like a being, we'll say, with like a kind of like a puffy jacket that's made out of that material in certain spots.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and my thing too is if you're okay, he either had to be in on it to say these things. I cannot see this guy.
I don't buy. I'm 100% with you on that. I don't buy him being in on it. I think if this is a hoax, some jackass did this and ruin this dude's life, man.
Yeah. No. And that's what I believe too. But the problem with that is if that's the case, if he was not in on it, then how the did they get a 3.5 foot tall metal man who could walk 10 feet at a time and move over 35 miles an hour? Like, it just doesn't.
Oh yeah, weird.
That doesn't. So if you believe that, then you have to kind of believe that it's somewhat of a real thing, because that's just
There's just too
that's
much.
not
That's
a
what
hoax.
I'm saying, dude. If it's a hoax, there's just too many questions. Which isn't it weird that like there's situations, it's more believable that it's just this, like just crazy out there encounter than it is just like some person that's just putting a show on.
Yeah, right.
And how do they know, by the way, that he's not going to come out there and just start shooting like crazy? We're in Alabama here.
Oh man, we didn't even bring that up.
I'm just saying that
that's.
think about it, dude.
I didn't think
If
about
I'm put yourself back in 1972. First off, I look a little like I'm. First question he's going to ask me is,
Well, you were born in 72. So
No. He's
you were
gonna
right
he's
there.
gonna be like, "Now, are you a foreigner?" I still get that question. It's 2021, right? So like, I wouldn't do that today. Put myself in a silver suit and just wait on the side of the road until hopefully a cop came, because I'd like, dude, I don't want to get shot in a metal suit. And they're like, "Oh man, my bad. I thought you were an alien."
Well, and that lends itself to all the Bigfoot accounts of like all these hunters and like,
Right, dude.
it's like that is the most dangerous thing you could possibly do.
Now, the only way that makes it safe kind of goes back to that had to be
Orange
in on it.
vest.
No, had to be wearing an orange vest. No, like they would have to be in cahoots,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right. I just don't see.
But again, it's just, dude, it's an endless loop of it doesn't make sense, which is what I love.
Yeah, me too. It's that unansweredness about it that's
Speaking
cool.
of unansweredness, dude, I'd noticed listening back to the premiere. Whenever I'm talking to Bryce, I say, dude, it's the worst. I'm like, yeah, I'm talking about the Patterson-Gimlin footage, and I say, like, it's one of the most important artifact, not artifacts, right? But or artifact, but artifact.
And I love the explanation too, with like, it looked like he says he was real bright, something like rubbing mercury on nickel. but just as smooth as glass. Different angles gave him different lighting. Man.
It also reminds me of, do you remember that, and it sucks, but that it kind of made its way around the internet a couple years ago where this reporter is reporting, I guess, I don't know if it's in New York, it's a big city, and it's snowing all around them, and the roads are covered in ice, and I guess the reporter sees some runners.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
And they come up, and they've got one of those amazing, I think it might be Nike, but there's another brand that like developed it, I think. But it's this jacket made for runners so that the whole thing is reflective.
Yeah, right.
And it looks kind of like this a little bit, like this material that isn't really metal, but if someone from the 70s saw it, they'd be like, what is this magic?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of...
I immediately give them a Southern accent. Like anytime there's somebody that...
I mean, they were Southern, though, so it works. It works for this one. Yeah, it's like that, I'll do it with, like, the kids. It's like you'll have, like a cell phone and, like, shine it, like, on, like a ring or on something. It, like, creates all these sort of weird reflections of light. And he had his high beams on, too, so... Right. I'm sure every way that he turned, it was just like, shooting off light.
There's almost more questions really than there are if it's a hoax. You know what I mean? Like, where did they get this material that, because if it was made out of, have you ever tried to like move around in tinfoil? I mean, I remember like in grade school, we made some sort of like, I think we used tinfoil to make some sort of like robot thing.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And then you start like moving it and it's like chunks of it just fall off.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, okay, how did they make it to where it's like a cohesive suit that's able to like move around this dude? And then it's just, I don't know. Who did it? Why haven't they come forward ever? All they had to do was kind of come forward and say, hey, it was a hoax. This guy's now, his life is, not ruined anymore. I don't know. The fascination with it just being the possibility of what did this guy see,
Yeah, right.
And putting yourself there and thinking about, you're traveling down a road and you're kind of on high alert, man. You're there because, no, it wasn't a helicopter. Someone calls and says, hey, I think I just saw some weird flying object crash. You need to come check it out. And so you're already kind of like, oh, man, this is weird. It's just fascinating, man. Good find.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome.
Again, happy, but also pissed.
Okay, so let's get into, let's kind of finish it up with what do you think it is? What do you think some possibilities of it is? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back to what I always do, and that's the time travel.
Dude, this is the one time that I'm kind of in that same boat of like, or maybe interdimensional.
Yeah, I'm going with like accidental, like just like a lot of these sort of encounters with things, I feel like lean mostly towards like unplanned accidental encounter with a human, really. If you flip it and you think about it in there sort of like, well, I've got to write this report. I mean, today I accidentally, crashed into this thing. Their encounter with humans doesn't really, a lot of the time, it doesn't seem like it's intentional necessarily,
Right.
That involve like these sort of like crashes and, quick encounters. Now, of course, there are other ones where they, allegedly take people and whatever. But this just sort of seems like, for whatever reason, they, I don't know. I know, and potentially maybe people get a little tired of me just saying time travel. But I just like the idea of even just relating it back to that Tim Burton remake of Planet of the Apes. It's a cool concept to me that you could send a chimpanzee into space and, effectively change a lot of things unintentionally, And as we know, like I said earlier, NASA's first sort of quote unquote space explorers were chimpanzees.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the cosmonaut sort of Soviet stuff. They used a lot of chimps too. Yeah. I don't really know about the chimpanzee thing, especially when you look into, and I had to look this up because I'm terrible with math, but it did say that number one, he was driving 35 miles an hour, and he said he was nowhere near catching up with the thing. Number two...
but chimps run pretty fast.
Well,
man.
but they don't do this. He said that they every single step that it would take was 3 meters, and that's 9 feet 10 inches. So,
It's a Bigfoot. It's a freaking Bigfoot.
but
in
it was
a metal
only
suit.
3.5 feet tall.
It's a small foot.
True. I think that I kind of agree. I think that it was an interdimensional thing. I do kind of think there's something to be said regarding there being like a crashed craft in the area, and I do like the idea that like, okay, so let's look at it in this way. Maybe the suit was some type of foil thing. You know, when you're entering the atmosphere of some new planet, you know, it gets real hot. So maybe that was a little bit of that component of why the suit looked like it did.
Super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I don't know. It's wild, dude.
Yeah, now we got to sort of backtrack and go back to the Pascagoula case because
because you unfairly just sprung this on me. Like, I will say that we're going to have to revisit this and Pascagoula and just try to, find other stuff about this. I mean, the pictures are fascinating, though.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I want to hear what the listeners think about this case specifically. So, when we post our artifacts, obviously we're going to have these pictures on our Instagram page. And I want to hear what you think about it, listener, because do you think it's just fake as heck? Does it look to you like it's just a hoax? Maybe this guy just didn't think it through, which, hey, man, I know a couple people in that I've met in life that make some poor decisions that just didn't think it through.
Yeah, but a lot of times it's hard to meet those people when they're also chiefs of police.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it can happen, but it is weird. I don't know. There's so many things like left unanswered with this.
Yeah. A lot of questions.
Yeah. But I do love like the jerky movements, the antenna on its head, no neck.
I mean, that's the thing, like the details, right?
Yeah. They're also weird. That's hot. That's the high strangeness part of it, Yeah. Yeah, it definitely did. It did that to me too. I guess because, we're both fascinated with Sam the Sandown Clown. So it, just something about the vibe really kind of pointed in that same kind of direction. And, that was part of the reason that I was like, man, I totally forgot about this. We got to do it.
Dude, I'm glad you did. But like I said, I'm also pissed.
Tell them where they can find us.
Well, like I said earlier, one of the best places truly to interact with us on a daily basis is on our Instagram page. And you can find us there at That Would Be Rad. That's where you can not only interact with us, but also each other and other listeners and stuff. And that's something that we really love to see is the conversations between our growing listeners and just to see the discussions about the episodes that we do, and what your thoughts are. And it's just really, really fascinating.
Yeah, we love that. While we're talking about Instagram, we love hearing from you guys, whether it's DMs or, like I mentioned before, we're kind of gearing up to Halloween season. And boy, would we love any sort of accounts, whether it's a voice memo, whether it's a typed out email of sort of some encounter or story or whatever it is. We would love to hear from you guys. And even more so, we would love to feature it during the Halloween season. If you want to tell the story, we'll throw some background music and some sound effects, and Woody will spice it up and make it cool. Or, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, just write it out and we'll read it and, make it cool. So feel free to shoot us DMs. If it is a long form sort of story or a voice memo, shoot it to thatwouldberadpod@gmail.com. And it's been a blast. Season 1 was fantastic, and this family is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we can't wait just to keep it moving, man. So
and real quick, thank you again to everyone that reached out and wished me a happy birthday. Truly means the world to me. So thank you very much.
Yeah, he's 50 has never looked so good than it does on Woody Brown.
Oh God, I'm not 50.
So but anyway, we love you guys. You mean the world to us. We do this because of you guys, because of the support and the love and the just the community that you guys offer to us on a daily basis. So let's do it again. Season 2, here we go. We love you. We appreciate you. And as always,
Be rad.
That's the way it goes. The way it goes. You're my favorite song on the radio that's only playing sad songs. Well, even sad songs have to come to an end. And you always said our future would be a parade of flowers, but I guess it died even before it began. And that's the way it goes. The way it goes. The way it goes. The way it You were all black clouds in a time where I just needed some sunshine. You were already dead for you became a ghost. You always said our future would be a parade of flowers, but now all that's left is a single rose. That's the way it goes. The way it goes. The way it goes. The way it
Well, even more embarrassing is I thought you were going to take out the whole moment where I was like, oh no, you go ahead.
No, because
You dead?
no, but listen, I couldn't because like whatever he said didn't make sense with a no. Oh, I was just gonna say boom. It was just like I
Oh,
couldn't.
yeah.
It's okay. It's come on, man. We're humans. Ann and I, dude, we listened to like a couple episodes of the show like yesterday a little bit together. In one of the bonus episodes, you're talking about the dream, right? Where you're like,
The flying?
No, well, we talk about my flying dream. Yeah. Where you could breathe underwater.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's this part where you're just like, dude, you got to go back and listen to your like description. If you do, man, it's like, poor listener, dude. It's like the worst
It takes an hour to
scientific
get to it.
explanation. You're like, well, first there's two hands, one hand on top of the other hand.
Yeah, I know.
Two fingers. One moves up. And you're just like, dude. And then I go, oh, you mean like write blood with your fingers? And we like both of us just kind of like, because you're like, no. And you just keep going. But then like at first, Anne was like, what were you talking about? And I showed her, you know, like how you
Yeah,
can,
I didn't
like,
know. I didn't know what you were talking
make the
about
word
either.
blood with your fingers. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. But it's not that.
No. Well, obviously, dude. But that's what makes it hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, from then on, like, as we were listening to other episodes, she was like, dude, you just got to, like, throw that in from now on. Just, like, anytime Tyler was like, no, I don't really know. And it's like, well, I mean, you could always...
Oh, like,
you could always just, like, draw blood with your
spell
fingers.
out
And
blood
also,
with your fingers.
instead of saying spell out, like you just did correctly, I said draw blood with your fingers.
Yeah, even more confusing.
Yeah, I know. Hilarious.
So maybe Thursday, maybe? We'll see. Just let me know, like, when's good. Like,
Sounds
maybe
good,
let me know today, and then I'll reach out to him and see what day's good for him. Well, and then I'll come over there, and I'll bring your birthday present, too.
Yeah, but I kind of want to, like, go to the comic shop before that. Ready? 3, 2, 1.